Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to FemCity's Monday Motivational Series. I am Violet Ayala. I'm the founder of FemCity, and you're joining us for a great conversation today. It was actually requested by a couple of femmes, so we went ahead and decided to create a panel discussion on this topic. It is all about Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue. We are coming into almost a year. I cannot believe it's almost a year that we've been in this pandemic mode. I have invited femmes from around the globe to join us today for the conversation. If you're watching this live, we encourage you to join us in the conversation. Our intention today is to give you actionable steps, tips, advice on how you can go ahead and recover from Zoom fatigue, or actually manage it and maintain it. So please, let us know if you have any questions. We're here for you. If you're watching this in the library months from now and you connect with one of our panelists, feel free to reach out to them. Again, they are all about wanting your success, wanting you to thrive in 2021 specifically, and to do it with as least little amount of Zoom fatigue as possible. So let me just welcome our panelists today. First, Shoshana. She is one of our femmes in the Canada, Toronto area. Shoshana, take it away. Share a little bit about what makes you an expert when it comes to talking about this topic.
Sure. So I was on Zoom before Zoom was like a big thing. And I actually saw somebody send me an email a little over a year ago saying, well, what's Zoom? When I asked if they wanted to Zoom. So I think it's funny that people didn't know about it. So I've been in this for a while, but I deal with people with fatigue all the time. So whether it's fatigue from hormones, fatigue from lifestyle habits, fatigue from the body breaking down, this is my jam. So this is just another layer on top of it. And I love getting down to the roots. So when I help people on their holistic journeys, a lot of what I'll talk about today is what I'm helping other people talk about on other times too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Stacy from Nebraska, take it away. Share a little bit about your expertise when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, so I have been working with cross-functional teams that have been displaced across the globe for a lot of my career, especially when I was at General Electric. I was the only person on my team in my physical space. And so it was always trying to connect via video conferencing and phones from people in different states and in India and China and Russia and all over. So I've dealt with video and just trying to connect remotely for a long time. And I've learned tips and tricks of how to be successful and keep people engaged along the way.
Excellent tips. And Tammy, all the way in Gig Harbor, Washington State, share a little bit about you as well.
Goodness, I have been working remotely. Gosh, but does anybody remember Y2K and the Y2K code remediation and how the world we thought was going to end because of a 2-digit date? I was setting up software factories remotely and internationally back then. So working remote and with remote teams is something I've done for a long time. But most recently, not only is Zoom an everyday thing and how I work with my clients, I've also been a public speaker and done virtual summits. And so when it comes to looking at Zoom and transferring your energy and having those conversations, it is kind of interesting how it's a lot like being on stage, and it does create its own kind of fatigue.
Awesome. All right, so let's get down to it. And we already have some love that came through. Someone posted some of my favorite ladies. Can't wait to hear your tips. And I was giggling today because I was like, the irony that we're talking about Zoom fatigue through a digital platform, but there is no other way to convey this message. I know you guys laughed when we posted that as an event in our FemCity calendar, but literally there was no other way. It's like any other platform, it was going to be the same. So we all understand, we all giggled also. And hey, Grace, I'm so glad that you're joining us today. All right, so how do you know you're in Zoom fatigue? Because that might be the first question. People are watching today, perhaps they weren't the femmes that requested this class, and they're like, Zoom fatigue sounds like hysterical. How do I know I even have it? What are the signs that you feel would be a really great kind of register in our minds that, yes, we're suffering from Zoom fatigue? And we'll go Shoshana, Stacy, and Tammy. Shoshana.
So I don't want to take up too many because I want to leave some for the other ladies, but I'm sure we all think about it in different ways. So I think number one, I think a lot of people don't even realize that they have it. But if you start getting angry before you have to get on a Zoom or just wish that it was over, I think that you're just tired of Zoom and you're fatigued from the Zoom. But in terms of your body, think about headaches, think about blurry eyes, think about brain fog. And if you had some of those things before, are they exasperated now? Are they worse now? So whatever health issues you may have had before, if they feel so much worse, it's probably from sitting, it's probably from staring, and it's probably Zoom fatigue.
Awesome. Stacy?
Yeah, so these days I'm mainly used to dealing with Zoom fatigue in terms of giving presentations over Zoom, because I'm pretty used to like the one-on-one and team aspect, and I enjoy that. But for me, it's all about the presentations. And so I feel like I'm getting Zoom fatigue when I'm declining presentations, or I'm thinking about declining speaking opportunities. And also, I think when you have tech problems and then you're really angry for a really long time after you have that tech problem, you probably have a little bit of Zoom fatigue, because let's face it, the more tech you use, the more that sort of stuff is going to happen. And then the last thing I'll say is, if I am leaving a meeting with less energy than when I started with, then I definitely have some Zoom fatigue.
That's a great tip. Actually, I always say that about humans, like people, because I have a girlfriend of mine that's always asking, how do I know if someone's not good for me? And I always tell her, like, if you walk away and you feel like more depleted, that's a sign that it may not be a good fit. So it's interesting. I love that you shared that in the digital space as well, where you're feeling like if you walk away and you're just like, drained completely, it might be a good time to take a break from that. Tammy.
It's so interesting. We have gone from this space of where we used to ask ourselves, could this meeting have been an email? And I think we're sort of back to that space where if you find yourself wondering, could this Zoom have been an email, right? Then that is sort of an indicator. But there are a couple of them. You know, do you feel that anxiety? It's really that gut check. Do you feel that anxiety building because you have another call? Are you frustrated because you feel like you have to be camera ready and it wasn't a day you wanted to be camera ready? Are you dreading it? Really? I mean, are you just thinking to yourself, this feels like an obligation and one more thing I just don't want to do today? And because once that starts, it just sort of starts feeding itself and snowballing and growing. And that's not an environment that, I know I don't want to work in. I won't speak for anybody else. But if you're starting to feel that way, those are all indicators that, maybe I'm getting a little fatigued.
Yeah, excellent tips. And I remember when we first started, we had so many femmes that were like, not going to do Zoom, right? They were like, I'm not going to do Zoom. I'm just going to wait it out. Or I'm just going to wait. And so we had months and months, and all of a sudden it became like longer and longer. And then finally we had some femmes that were like, okay, I got on the Zoom. Like I feel that honestly, like we're going to be in this, I'm in Miami. No one's following anything here. It is like completely savage. Like I'm like the only one, and my girlfriends that wear masks, and we're like all, but for the most part, I feel like we're going to be in this for, a little bit longer into the fall, realistically. And I find a lot of joy in it. But I've been doing it like you guys. I've been doing it for so long that I find a lot of joy. I mean, I've had some little tips that I've had to add for sure that I'll share at the end. So let's get down to kind of the action steps, because I know femmes are probably like, okay, great. I'm suffering from Zoom fatigue. I resonated with one or all of what was just shared. So what are some ways that you've actually recovered? And what are some of the things that you do actually when you're feeling that Zoom fatigue coming on? And we'll do the same roundtable, Shoshana, Stacy, and Tammy.
So I think I'm just going to bring it back to the basics, the basic, healthy, foundational steps that you need to take for a good life. So whether you are feeling fatigued at work or whether you're feeling fatigued with your family, number one, I'd say stay hydrated. Make sure that you always have, you might not want to be drinking through your interviews or that, but make sure that you have it there to take your sips, because you're sitting in one spot, your computer might be radiating heat. You want to stay hydrated and keep the brain well oiled. Choose foods that are going to support you, right? So these are things that I do with myself, but also with my clients. How do you feel after you've eaten a meal? If you want to be light and cheerful when you're getting on a Zoom, you're not going to want to eat that big turkey dinner leftovers, just before, or maybe not at all. And you want to integrate movement into your day. So in between your Zooms, get up, move around, use the washroom that's furthest from your office, or take a quick walk around the block before you go and eat your lunch, and have stress management tools throughout your day like you would normally. And make sure that you have physical contact with people. So, I'll hug my family more, or if you have a pet, or if you live alone, you know, like maybe give yourself a self massage. But we need that physical contact too to help balance it and make sure that you're getting a good night's sleep. Turn off your phone at least 45 minutes before your head's going to hit the pillow.
Excellent tips. Excellent. And Grace says, oh, yes, our eyes. Someone said, say yes, stay hydrated. And then Grace says, could you imagine us online for at least 8 to 3 on a daily basis, 5 days a week? That's my husband. He was actually doing business in New York City, Monday through Friday, and he is on Zoom, literally, or versions of Zoom, like Skype. He does a lot on Skype from 8:30 until like 7:30 at night, all day. Like it's insane. And he's been like that. So I don't even know how he does it. Honestly, I don't even know. Let's go to Stacy for her action steps.
Yeah, a lot of mine relates to what Shoshana was saying about the movement. I find that I can get over my Zoom fatigue going into something if I do a little bit of power posing. And you can do any pose that you consider to be powerful. So as an example, like I like to do a little Wonder Woman before I'm getting on stage. You put your hands on your hips, you put your feet hip width apart, and you just stand there and you do some deep, powerful breathing before you start to speak. You could also do like the gun show and get ready to speak as well. And some other people like to do the V as well. Just anything that makes you feel powerful and energized before you go on. And another thing I'd like to suggest is when you're used to doing like speaking engagements in real life, we were like up on a stage or in front of the room and walking around. So we had lots of movement while we were doing. So see if you can configure something in your space where you can stand and give your presentation rather than like sitting in your chair like I'm doing right now. And different days I feel different things, but I would say, you know, practice that a little bit and see if you feel more energized when you practice that, and then maybe see if you can bring that into some of your presentations and see how that works for you. And then I would also suggest when you're giving that presentation, figure out if you can give yourself a break during by bringing in some interaction from your audience. So like ask them to type in the chat, have maybe somebody come on and speak for a minute. And you can also throw in some polls to give yourself a break to take that drink of water or just kind of, you know, feel the audience out as well.
Excellent tip, Stacy. Excellent. And a Facebook user said, Stacy, I love that. And they added a smiley face too. Tammy, what are some steps that you actually use for Zoom fatigue?
Well, I love what Stacy said about standing. I actually have a standing desk. So, it's also a sitting desk, which is one of the things I do, which is sort of delineate my workspaces so that I can literally turn my back on technology for a few hours a day and do some thinking and reading and things that are not all tech all the time. Proactively choosing meetings is also, I think, really important. I think that at the start of quarantine, you know, we saw all these things like if you don't come out of quarantine knowing how to speak 3 different languages and this and that and the other thing. And so we have this FOMO that if we aren't always catching all the things all the time, then we're missing something or we're failing somehow. So proactively choosing them. And it's interesting because science has actually said Zoom fatigue is real, and it's a thing because we are so used to, as humans, we've developed to look for social cues that you see in a person's face, those micro expressions. And so even now I'm speaking, but I can look at one of you at a time to see any micro expressions. So your brain is kind of working overtime, trying to figure out what your audience is doing. One of the easiest tips to kind of cease that fatigue, and also, by the way, it is stressful to look at yourself. Science has shown us that as well, and that gets very distracting. But using speaker view in Zoom will help your brain and help with fatigue because now your speaker is the only one that you're seeing, and also making video optional on meetings, especially if you're a host, so people don't feel like they have to be on stage if they're not at that space.
Gosh, that's excellent. You know, I thought about getting a standing desk. I think Shoshana may have one too, or you have one that you walk on the treadmill. Yes.
Yeah, I just took an old shelf from a shelving unit and I put it across the handlebars, and I put on, I don't always use that clip, but I put on the clip just in case I'm falling off the back and it'll stop, and I walk really slow and I'll go up the standing desk. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I have the Peloton from years ago, like the old version of the Peloton, and I got an acrylic tablet, and it latches on top of the handlebars, and I'm able to put my laptop there and kind of type away. But I feel like, I know for myself, I've had to, like what you guys all mentioned, move more. So I've had to start working out in the morning and at night, because now I'm not moving at all. Like I'm just sitting, and then so I'm like, this is not good for me. For sure, the blue light. So I have like 250 of these. Not really. I have like 4, but these blue light ones, they make my eyes feel a lot better. They were getting irritated and really red, and so I have every color because I got them on sale for like $5 or something like that. But they really help, the blue light. And I think for myself, detaching from the laptop and the computer during the weekend, I'm more strict about it now, because I honestly don't even want anything. I don't want any social media. I don't want any kind of a device. So everything that you guys shared totally resonated with what I've been feeling as well. Those are excellent tips. Any questions that you guys have, for those that are watching live, go ahead and place those over in the chat. Final advice that you guys have for those that are really looking to, and those are all awesome advice, tips, and tricks that you guys are using. Final advice that you guys have for femmes. Shoshana?
So number 1, stop multitasking, because I think a lot of us, because we're at the computer, we feel like, oh, I could send those emails. You're not even listening to the Zoom in the first place. You're missing all the information. So why even go in the first place? So either be present or don't be there. And having said that, there's a lot of times where you can catch the replays, and you could be on your treadmill, or you could be making dinner, you could be going for your walk around the block. So you don't necessarily have to put that visual aspect to it. You could just put it in your pocket and only use auditory. We're actually much more alert when we're using one sensory at a time. And yeah, maybe you need a third party to assess what's going on. And, I do audits for people all the time, and they say, oh, my sleep hygiene's great. And then we take a look at it, and while their phone is on all night long, or they're watching Netflix instead of on the TV on their phone before. So there's always things that you can improve that you might not see yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Stacy?
So I would say, from a speaker's point of view, never Zoom alone. So especially if it's like your webinar, your masterclass, either hire a virtual assistant or bring in a buddy to help you out with that. And you could like swap services with your buddy. And so they can do all of the things during the Zoom, and then you can just focus on speaking, being engaged and energized, and delivering your message. So you could have somebody else running the chat for you, doing the administrative stuff, like letting people into the meeting. If somebody's being naughty, they can kick them out of the meeting. They could maybe even run your slides for you if you're comfortable with that. You can even bring in like an MC if it's a bigger event with like multiple people, or you have really big transitions. And then that kind of makes it fun, because they can bring in some, closing comments as you move on to each thing as well. And it just is much more engaging for the audience and energizing when you can have all those different things going on. And it's going to be better for you if you can have somebody help you out with that as well. That's my final thought on that.
Love it. Excellent tips. Excellent. Yeah. You know what? I actually feel, now that you say that, during the pandemic, I feel more, probably for a little bit different reasons, not because of I'm speaking and as a presentation, but I actually now enjoy more having people with me. I used to do a lot more like IGTV by myself and Facebook Lives by myself. And I find that now I really am craving having others around me. I find so much more joy not being just myself. And I'm wondering if it's because it's Zoom fatigue also, like just, I feel like happier with other people around me since I can't do that physically anymore. Tammy, final tips.
Yeah, so I'm going to say use tech wisely. I know, kind of funny, we're talking about using tech, but what I mean by that is building in buffers and also giving folks the opportunity to schedule a phone call and not just always having it be a Zoom option. So if you go out to my website and go to schedule time with me, it's going to give you an option. Do you want a phone call or do you want a video call? Because I found that to be a barrier with my clients and my prospects, because they're getting fatigue. And then I would say build in buffers using tech, right? So I have a 30-minute before and a 30-minute after, because I need bio breaks. I need to get outside. I need to take sometimes a few minutes of just breathing, deep breathing, to center myself before the next thing I go into, especially if it's with client work, because I'm sometimes switching from one topic to another, and I need to remind myself what the heck I'm doing and what we're going to be talking about. So make sure you do that little bit of self-care that is so critical, because that self-care, it's not selfish at all. Actually, that self-care is helping you serve the best that you can when you're working with the other person on the other end of the phone or on the other end of the call.
That's a great tip. I didn't even, yeah, that's amazing. You're right. Sometimes it's enjoyable when you just talk on the phone, just talking. That Clubhouse app, I know that we've talked about it, but I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy it, is because it's on the phone. It's just like, you have your little headset on or little AirPods on and you just listen. I hadn't even thought of that. That's brilliant. We have a comment that came through. Thoughts on if blue light blocking glasses help? So I actually researched it before I bought a pair. And research was kind of like both ways. Like some people said it was like a hoax and like not real, that it actually works. And then some people were like, oh, it makes me feel a lot better. So I just bought one pair to see how I felt. And I felt a difference, whether it's a placebo effect or not, I'm not really sure, but I then use them all the time. I'm not using them now because I've got the ring light on, and you would just see like the Mr. Magoo kind of in two different forms. So that's why I don't have them on right now. And I did get them for my kids as well, because they're now obviously all online. So I got them for the entire family. Once I felt like, my eyes were not drying out as much, I wasn't feeling like this pressure on my head anymore. Again, placebo, I'm not sure, but I did get it for the kids and they all use them as well. So I don't know what to say. I'm not a scientist, but I did research a little bit, but I didn't dive in probably as much as I should have. But I would recommend just buy an inexpensive pair and then try it out and see how you feel. If it feels good, then buy 250 like I did. I only bought like 5, but anyway. All right. So ways that we can connect with you in case femmes want to learn more about you. Shoshana, where can femmes find you, learn more about the work that you're doing in this world?
Sure. So I'm very easy to find on Facebook, and then you could kind of find all the other little areas to reach out there. And if people are having health issues that have been exasperated because of sitting on Zoom, then I do some really great, just, quick one-on-ones with them to help them thrive.
Awesome. Stacy, where can femmes find you and learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yep, you can find me everywhere as Silicon Prairie Cyber. I think most people flock to Instagram, and if you're interested in doing anything cybersecurity, we can have a discovery call and check that out. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Tammy.
You can find me on my website, tanyant.com, TANIANT.com, and you can schedule a discovery call with me. I work with folks, either entrepreneurs or nonprofit, private, and public sector organizations with some consulting and strategy, and you can book either a telephone or a video call.
I love that. I have to figure out how to do that on my website. Thank you so much, ladies. You guys, this is great. Femmes that requested this class, please let us know how these tips help you. We want to see that you're thriving and shining and doing all the great things that you are destined to do in this world. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us. We'll be back next Monday. We are changing the time in March. We will go from 12 p.m. Eastern time to 1 p.m. Eastern time. That was based on a little focus group that we did with members. So in March, we'll shift a little bit. I think it'll be better for time zones also around the world to do it at 1 p.m. Eastern time. But if you have any other topics that you want us to cover, just message me, and we hope you have a great week. Bye.